All right, we've got to have a really serious discussion about the response to yesterday's viral video of a Jewish man walking through Paris and having anti-Semitic slurs thrown at him, being spit at, etc. I have said for a long time that it is more acceptable to be anti-Semitic than prejudiced against other religious, ethnic, and racial groups. In part, this is because of stereotypes around the current great status of Jews, mostly in parts of the US, as a sort of exculpation for mistreatment. It completely ignores the fact that the state of Jews outside of the last 40 years, in great part in the US, has been persistent and constant persecution all over the world for thousands of years. But part of this acceptance of anti-Semitism to some degree is that people say, hey, Jews are doing really well right now, even if that only applies to parts of the United States and within the last few decades. In addition, policies and decisions that are made by Israel, which is a tiny country in the Middle East that most Jews have never visited, are sometimes also used as a defense or at least as an explanation for why it's understandable that there is anti-Semitic sentiment. Yesterday, we played this video of a French Jew casually walking around Paris and being on the receiving end of anti-Semitic insults, people spitting at him, all sorts of horrible things. And the reaction to that video has been truly stunning, Lewis. And I, as the Jewish host of a show, have come to expect significant anti-Semitism anytime the issue of Jews comes up. And many times even when it doesn't. I get attacked for being Jewish, even if the topic of discussion has nothing to do with Judaism. And the reactions have truly been stunning. Tons of comments responding to the video were saying that people saying where the guy was walking might be an explanation as to why this is happening. Here's a quote. I could be wrong, but it sure seems to me like the young man was walking through predominantly Middle Eastern neighborhoods, maybe trying to provoke the very reaction he was getting. Is the argument that he was walking through a neighborhood and that in and of itself is a provocation of harassment, an argument you would make if it were not a Jewish individual? Walking through a Middle Eastern neighborhood is now considered provocation? That seems like a horribly biased standard, Lewis.
It was a street, an open street, a public area. You can't make that argument. It's somewhere people walk through, and you need to traverse these streets and sidewalks as you traverse the city. That's that.
Lots of people saying that. David, look at where he was walking. He was in a Muslim neighborhood. He was asking for it in some way. Another angle was lots of people using Israeli policy as a way to justify harassment of Jews in France. Here's one comment I got. You have to wonder, David, if Israel weren't so hell-bent on committing genocide of Palestinians, maybe people in Europe wouldn't be so angry at the Jews, which is one of the most ignorant responses you could have to this. The reference to people mistreating Jews in Europe because of the foreign policy of Israel is a justification equivalent to someone saying, hey, American Muslims to some extent deserve to be mistreated because of the heinous acts conducted by Middle Eastern Muslims. Let me give you another example of what you're essentially saying when you say, hey, Jews should expect that in France because of policy decisions in Israel. What if African Americans deserved to be mistreated in the US because everyone in Boko Haram in Nigeria is bad and they're also black? Or to give you one more example, imagine defending the harassment and spitting on Russians living in the US because, hey, Vladimir Putin is completely belligerent in Moscow. This is yet another example where it is more acceptable to be anti-Semitic and a standard is being applied. Hey, look at what Israel's doing. They deserve it in France. That would not be applied anywhere else.
That's the connection a lot of people make. They just assume that because you are Jewish, no matter where you are somehow part of Israel or Israeli or support everything that Israel does policy-wise.
And then the third one is I got a few voicemails that had lines like, here's a quote, I condemn anti-Semitism, but Israel is ... full stop. I condemn anti-Semitism, but Israel is doing XYZ. That is something that, with the exception of some extremist right-wingers, most people would be embarrassed to use that type of explanation if it were Muslims, if it were black people, if it were Hispanics. Again, with the exception of just the most extreme right-wingers. But it is more acceptable to say things like that when we are talking about Jews. Tons of these comments also were just absolutely flat out maniacal, like, good, I hate Jews, I'm glad he got spit on. I'm not even addressing those because those are kind of, that doesn't even really warrant any response. But this is a really serious thing. And all of our suspicions, Lewis, about the higher level of acceptability of anti-Semitism has been confirmed by the response to yesterday's video.
I'm not surprised. You have to wonder if there were more than one Jewish country, would people still be making these arguments, about Israel and Jews? If there's only one, right? I mean, but there are many Muslim countries, there are many Christian countries. I don't know.
Send me your thoughts on this. I know a lot of people will disagree, and quite frankly, I knew that going in, and this commentary needed to be done, and I'm waiting for the feedback, and we know what a lot of it will be, Lewis. Follow me on Twitter, twitter.com/dpakman.